You can't blame him if you ain't doing right. Well, hey everybody. Welcome to the Rock House, where spiritual growth is and always will be the foundation. So, I am so glad y'all joined me today. And yes, I am sweaty once again because for some reason, I always seem to talk to y'all after working out. That's because when I run and do workouts is when I get like all these revelations and things. I shouldn't say revelations, but that's my time to kind of spend time with God. And while I'm working out, I just chit chat with him and talk about different things. One of the things that came to me today, which kind of pricked my heart a little bit and convicted me a little bit, because I think about, how a lot of times people blame God. We blame God when things don't go right, and when bad things happen to good people, we're quick to say, well, how could a loving God allow something like that to happen? Well, let me tell you this story. Well, first of all, we serve a just God. That's, of course, if you belong to him. We serve a just and mighty God. And let me give you this example. The work that I do requires some training. And of course, I used to be a trainer, probably not a good one, but I used to be a trainer. And during the course of training, people are tested along the way to make sure that they comprehend, understand, and know all the information so that they will be a great employee. Well, during this training, everybody doesn't do so well. Everybody doesn't pass. And it's because there's a standard that is required in order to pass. And at one point in time, this class used to be one of the hardest classes to actually get into. My company used to be one of the hardest places to get into, and particularly the job that I do. It was second to NASA. So NASA was number one, and then getting into this job was number two. Crazy. And it's because it had very high standards. So people were banging on the door to get in. They wanted to be a part of this great company. They wanted to be a part of this great career. So they did everything they could to get in. And once they got in, there was a standard. There was a standard that was required. And there was no fudging on the standard. If you didn't meet the requirements, then you didn't make it in. And that's just the way it was. And that's one of the reasons why the company is so great, because of the standard that it upholds. So during this class, there are students who go and study and are diligent and spend a lot of time and effort postponing the parties, postponing all of the other stuff that they'd like to do. And they're totally committed to the fact that they want to learn this information so that they can be successful and be a part of this company. Then there's those others who may not do as much, they don't do as well, but they chose to do other things. They chose to do things that felt good to them. They chose to do things that were more of an interest, or they got excited about it in the moment. And those people didn't pass. And of course, when they're sitting there in the briefing room and it's time to explain to them that you didn't pass the test, so I'm sorry, this is the end of your training. Your training ends today because you didn't pass. And don't try to say, well, you should extend some grace and mercy to them. Well, that was extended when you get 2 retakes, when you were explained everything you needed to do on the first day. All of that stuff was given to you up front. And there was grace and mercy along the way when you were allowed 2 retakes. But on this day and this time, when you failed, it's your fault and your fault alone, because you chose to do some other things. And for me, as an instructor, supervisor, for me to say, well, okay, we'll give you another chance, or it's okay, you didn't have to pass all of it. Well, you passed a little bit. You got an 89, which a 90 is the standard. It's like, well, you got an 89. That's close enough. Come on in. You are welcomed into the company. I would be doing my company a disservice, and I would not be upholding the standards of the company. And that would make the company a little less than what it's supposed to be, or what the standard is, and less perfect, if you will. So when I hear people blame God and say things like, well, how could a just and loving God allow this to happen? How could they let somebody be in a car wreck? How could they allow somebody to be killed or hurt and blah, 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 and deal with their consequences? So I always think about this a lot, and I think, okay, in the last days when every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord, when we stand before him, because everybody will be judged, whether you want to or not, you're going to be judged. He's going to play your stuff on the movie screen and be like, hey, look at here, look at what we got here. Everybody will be judged. And I do not want to stand before him and say, well, I got close. I got an 89, God. So, can I go on and get in, because 89, you a loving and just God, so. But I think with his word, he's going to remind us that he is a just God. And because he is a just God, he has to issue the appropriate rewards or the appropriate discipline that is due me for the decisions and things that I decided to make. Just like those kids, or not kids, but those students who chose to do some other things, to live by their own will and do what they wanted while they were in training, and then failed, and now they want me to be just and say, well, you need to be just and allow me some grace and all of that. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that, because if God did that, how is that fair to those who did what they were supposed to do? How is that fair, and how does that uphold the standard of the kingdom of a perfect God if he allowed the mediocre or the unjust to enter into the kingdom of heaven? That would not be fair. Just like it wouldn't be fair to those who stayed up all night studying and working diligently to pass. And then I turn around and tell somebody else who makes an 89 or even less and say, oh yeah, welcome in anyway. That's not fair, and that is not just. And that is not the standard of the company. Just like for God, that is not fair, and it will make him an unjust God to allow a sinner or those who are not committed and totally sold out to him into the kingdom of heaven. So that's just how it is. I mean, we know that I know that he's not an imperfect God. He is perfect, and I understand he has to be just because it's part of his nature. And let's look at Psalm. I read this in Psalm. There's a whole lot of scriptures in here about how just God is, but in Psalm 89. I think it's 89:14. Righteous and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before your face. So that is powerful, and it's so true. And what I'm learning to understand is that either I can believe what I read or read what I believe. And I choose to believe what I read, because what he says is true. That's like me saying, well, this is what I believe. Now I'm going to read into this scripture what I want it to be, as opposed to say, I'm going to read this scripture and I'm going to believe whatever it tells me. So there's two different thought processes going on there. But I won't get into that. I'll get into that on another one. The point I want you to get is, hey, we serve a loving and just God, and you can't blame him if you ain't doing right. Don't blame God for your drama. Okay? We can only serve one master. We can't serve two masters. And really a quick example that I just heard, which is awesome, made me really think about stuff, is that can you stand on two boats at the same time, one leg here, one leg there, and not sink? No. And if you do it, you can't do it for very long. Just think about it. Have you ever tried to do two things at the same time? Circle your arm this way and then circle your leg the opposite direction. It's very difficult, right? It doesn't work. So you can't be double-minded. You can't serve two masters. And I ain't here to convict nobody or tell nobody you're wrong or point fingers and blame folk, because I'm talking to me, this dude right here. You can't serve two masters, brother. Sister, you can't serve two masters. We cannot serve two masters. God is a jealous God. He wants us to serve him and him alone. So don't split your love between him and somebody else. It doesn't work. It does not work. He is our one and only love. So give him all of you, every bit of you. And like I always tell you, ain't nobody perfect up in here. Every day's a challenge. Every day's a challenge. Ain't nobody perfect. But on this channel, on this day, right now, it's all about growing spiritually. And I thank you all for joining me, even if it's just the two of you. Thank you for being diligent. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing this to everybody. Because in the end, everybody will be judged, whether you like it or not. So don't live for today. Don't live for this world, but live each day for eternity. And come back and see me here at the Rock House. As always, you know I love y'all. Is that a heart? Peace.